Why did a method believed to be quick reveal something else under examination? Physicians studied the still bodies of the executed. Their findings broke the old assumption. Hanging did not always end a life at once. It began a process. In some cases, that process lasted a long time. The doctors saw death arrive slowly. That slow arrival had a procedure behind it. Around 500 BCE, Persian rulers began the execution by lifting the condemned person on a rope. They used it against traitors and enemies of the ruler. There was no trapdoor, no platform weighted beneath them. A rope closed around the neck, and the body was raised clear of the ground. Then it remained suspended by its own weight. No fall added force. The rope tightened only as the body pulled against it. The jugular veins compressed quickly, limiting blood leaving the brain. The carotid arteries were harder to close completely. Some blood could still reach the brain. Awareness could continue for several minutes while pressure rose inside the skull and oxygen diminished. The method imposed no sudden break. It left the neck under pressure and the body in the air. Romans later hanged slaves and criminals of lower rank alongside crucifixion. Germanic tribes also used hanging in religious sacrifices during the 1st century CE. Around 98 CE, the Roman historian Tacitus recorded those Germanic sacrifices in Germania. Centuries after Roman accounts recorded hanging rites, a London cart approached Tyburn's gallows. In 1296, London built its first permanent gallows there. Tyburn stood outside the city. For more than 5 centuries, it remained London's main execution ground. The condemned arrived on a cart beneath the beam. A rope went around the neck and over the timber. Then attendants pulled the cart away. The body dropped only a short distance, often leaving the feet a few centimeters above the ground. This became the short drop. Sometimes the hands remained free. 16th and 17th century witnesses described kicking, twisting, and clawing at the rope after the cart moved. The struggle could continue for several minutes while sheriffs and constables stood nearby. Friends and relatives sometimes pushed through to help. They pulled down on the condemned person's legs. More weight might break the neck and shorten the suffering, but the result depended on body weight, rope length, and luck. Sometimes it helped. Often it did not. Many necks did not break. The movement ended when the brain no longer received oxygen. Once the struggle ceased, the rope in an untrained hangman's hands could decide what came next. Few people chose the job. In the 17th century, he received about 10 shillings per execution and could sell the condemned person's clothing. No formal training prepared him. Rope quality varied greatly. Some people survived the hanging temporarily, partially, or completely. A failed hanging could leave someone still breathing. Anne Green climbed the ladder at Oxford Castle on December 14, 1650. She was 22, a servant from Steeple Barton in Oxfordshire. Her employer's teenage grandson, Geoffrey Reed, had made her pregnant. The child was stillborn. Green hid the body in a privy, and officers arrested her. The court charged her under the 1624 Act to prevent the destroying and murdering of bastard children. It convicted her of infanticide and ordered her execution. At the ladder, Green prayed aloud and sang part of a psalm. Then the rope tightened. She hung for about 30 minutes. The rope still had not ended her life. A soldier struck her chest and stomach with a musket butt, while friends pulled her legs. They tried to hasten what the rope had failed to do. Afterward, workers cut Green down and placed her in a coffin. They delivered it to Oxford physicians Thomas Willis and William Petty for anatomical dissection. Legal access to human remains was rare for doctors then. When the physicians opened the coffin, they heard her breathing. The dissection stopped at once. Willis and Petty cleared her airway, warmed her body, and gave medicines used at the time. They also bled her, a common 17th century treatment. The work continued for hours. By the next morning, Anne Green could speak. Within 2 weeks, she ate normally again. The authorities ruled that the sentence had already been carried out and pardoned Anne Green.
A pardon reached Tyburn,
after John Smith had hung for about 15 minutes. Too late to spare the sentence. The crowd shouted that his execution had been reprieved, and officials cut him down. Smith had been convicted of burglary in London and sentenced to hang on December 24, 1705. They carried him into a nearby house. Within minutes, he regained consciousness. Later, Smith recalled a rushing sensation, then darkness. Pain followed as blood returned to his head. Londoners called him half-hanged Smith. He received an official pardon and lived for several more years. Margaret Dixon's coffin had already left Edinburgh when a noise came from inside. On the 2nd of September 1724, officials hanged her at the Grassmarket. Dixon came from nearby Musselburgh. A court had convicted her of concealing a pregnancy after she delivered a stillborn child. They cut her down, placed her in a coffin, and loaded it onto a cart bound for burial. The cart rolled away from the city. Then the attendants heard sounds beneath the coffin lid. They stopped. They opened it. Margaret Dixon was breathing. A surgeon examined her and confirmed that she remained alive. She was later released and returned to Musselburgh. The hanging had not ended her life. It had only carried her as far as the road. She lived for nearly 30 more years and died naturally around 1753. The declaration of death had ended her first marriage in law. Margaret Dixon later married the same man again. That second marriage was possible because the rope had not broken Margaret Dixon's neck. In most earlier executions, a short fall tightened the noose but left the cervical bones intact. Survival turned on that difference. Hanging could kill in 3 ways. The rope could close the airway and cut off air. It could squeeze the neck's major vessels until too little blood reached the brain. Or the fall could fracture the neck and damage the spinal cord. The first 2 paths took time. Blood flow could fall sharply even when the airway was not fully closed. Consciousness usually disappeared after 1 to 3 minutes, but unconsciousness was not death. The brainstem could still control breathing, heartbeat, and blood pressure for 5 to 10 minutes after awareness was gone. During that interval, the heart could continue beating. A fracture at the 2nd or 3rd cervical vertebra, C2 or C3, changed everything. Damage there cut the spinal cord at the neck. Consciousness vanished within seconds. The brain lost contact with the rest of the body. Within minutes, the heart and lungs could no longer be regulated. Recovery was no longer possible. Until the middle of the 19th century, almost every execution used a short drop. The rope pulled tight. It usually caused suffocation or loss of blood flow, not a broken neck. Those were the conditions that left condemned people alive long enough to be found. William Calcraft carried out executions in that older form. The older method continued beneath the platform. There, William Calcraft pulled down on condemned prisoners' legs. On April 5, 1829, Calcraft became England's official executioner. He held the post for 45 years, longer than any English hangman before or after him. He executed an estimated 450 people. His pay was 1 guinea each week, plus 1 guinea for every execution. He also sold pieces of execution rope to collectors. Each inch cost 5 shillings. Calcraft relied on short drops. They usually measured between 3 and 12 inches. The body jerked downward. The neck often did not break. Many prisoners died slowly from strangulation. Franz Müller died at Newgate Prison on November 14, 1864. He was the first man convicted of a murder committed on a British railway. Witnesses saw his body move for several minutes after the drop. Calcraft stood beneath the gallows and pulled down on Muller's legs. The silence after the drop lasted 5 to 8 minutes. In 1868, the Lancet examined Calcraft's methods and recorded what witnesses had long watched. Several prisoners died from asphyxiation. Doctors gave the slow death a medical name. Calcraft retired in 1874. His practice had changed little for nearly half a century, while hundreds passed through his executions. The Lancet's publication named asphyxiation as the cause of death. That medical finding gave William Marwood a different problem to solve: the force of the rope's pull. A shoemaker from Horncastle in Lincolnshire, he was neither a doctor nor a scientist. He believed a longer fall could break the neck before the rope compressed the airway for minutes. But the distance had to be controlled. A short fall left a person slowly suffocating. A longer one could tear the head from the body. In the early 1870s, Marwood took this proposal to prison officials. They permitted a test at Lincoln Castle in 1872. William Frederick Horry fell under the new method while witnesses watched after the rope tightened. They reported his death within seconds. Movement stopped almost immediately. About 90 seconds after the fall, medical observers found his pupils fixed and dilated. Lincoln Castle's observers had timed seconds. In 1874, William Marwood turned those observations into tables pairing a prisoner's weight with a measured drop. A person weighing about 63.5 kilograms received a fall of about 2 4/10 meters. A person of about 90.5 kilograms received about 1.5 meters. Marwood kept correcting the figures as he gained experience. Bodies often remained still at once. Witnesses believed consciousness vanished within seconds, while officials usually confirmed death after 2 to 4 minutes. The tables recorded an attempt to keep each drop within a chosen range. Marwood died in office in 1883. His method spread through Britain and its colonies, then influenced execution practice in the United States, Canada, and Australia. Those tables could set a rope's length. They could not move wet wood. On February 23, 1885, James Berry pulled the lever at Exeter Prison beneath John Lee. The trapdoor stayed shut. Lee had been convicted of murdering his employer, Emma Keyes. Berry placed him on the wooden door and fixed the noose. He reset the mechanism and pulled again. Nothing moved. Lee remained above the closed hatch, the rope still around his neck, while the second attempt failed. Berry tried a third time. Again, the door would not open. The execution stopped there. Investigators later traced the jam to rain that had warped the wooden trapdoor. Under Lee's weight, the swollen wood caught and held. The rope, knot, and calculated drop could do nothing until that door opened. A small fault decided the scene. Lee left prison in 1907 and died in 1945. His sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Lee's commutation ended one case. James Berry continued changing rope lengths by his own calculations. At Norwich Castle, on November 30, 1885, he miscalculated Robert Goodale's drop. The trapdoor opened. The fall was too long, tearing Goodale's head from his body. Berry changed his calculations and resigned in 1892. That calculation error surfaced again in Arizona, where hanging rules differed by state and training remained inconsistent. On February 21, 1930, Eva Dugan became the first woman Arizona executed. Officials misjudged the drop. The rope was too long, and Dugan was decapitated. Several witnesses fainted. Within weeks, Arizona abandoned hanging and switched to the gas chamber. Arizona's retreat did not keep the next hanging from becoming a public spectacle. On August 14, 1936, Owensboro, Kentucky gathered around the scaffold. Rainey Bethea was 22, convicted of rape and murder. Estimates put the crowd between 10 and 20,000. Arthur Hash, a 70-year-old former sheriff, carried out the execution. Reports said he was drunk. Journalists recorded chaos and humiliation. Their accounts followed the last public hanging in the United States. Public spectacle ended in Kentucky. British doctors preserved another record, the body's response. From the 1880s, they observed every judicial hanging. Their notes now sit in the United Kingdom National Archives. They recorded the silence after movement stopped, the pupils, and the heartbeat. When the fall worked as calculated, movement ceased within seconds. Pupils became fixed and dilated after about 1 minute. A stethoscope usually confirmed death within 2 to 4 minutes. Doctors believed consciousness disappeared almost at once. But mistakes changed the record. Some deaths took 5, 8, or 12 minutes. The heart still beat. Reflex movements continued. The same calm language recorded both outcomes. Those records reached London. From 1949 to 1953, the Royal Commission on Capital Punishment examined what doctors had documented. Sir Ernest Gowers chaired the hearings. The evidence was plain. Forensic pathologist David Bowen gave the key testimony. A correctly performed British hanging brought unconsciousness almost immediately. Death took longer. Biological death still required several minutes. The Commission accepted that distinction. Its finding rested on one condition: the execution had to be carried out correctly. On August 13, 1964, Peter Anthony Allen was hanged at Walton Prison in Liverpool. Gwyn Owen Evans was hanged at Strangeways Prison in Manchester. Doctors confirmed death in about 2 minutes in both records. After judicial executions ended, hospital records became the main evidence. Feet or knees touching the floor changed the pressure on the neck. The timing mattered. A 1979 study in Annals of Emergency Medicine followed 32 patients found hanging. Those found within about 4 minutes often recovered well. Between 5 and 9 minutes, results varied. Some survivors had memory loss, impaired thinking, or movement disorders. After 10 minutes, meaningful brain function rarely remained. Many of those cases involved partial suspension. Contact with the floor reduced the force on the neck and slowed oxygen loss. Full suspension placed the entire body weight on the rope. Pressure rose faster. Oxygen deprivation deepened. Researchers at the University of British Columbia reviewed 34 survivors across 10 years in 1989. Their records showed the same divide. Every patient with a good outcome after full suspension had been found within roughly 3 to 4 minutes. After that, severe brain damage became far more likely. One patient in a 1983 Journal of Trauma report remained alive after an estimated 18 to 20 minutes of full suspension. Survival did not mean recovery. Severe, permanent brain damage followed, and the patient required lifelong institutional care. A short drop usually killed through strangulation and oxygen loss over about 5 to 15 minutes. A properly performed long drop usually broke the neck and brought unconsciousness in about 10 seconds. Reports, forensic evidence, and emergency medicine studies point to time and method. Science still cannot fully establish what occurred in those final moments. The patient survived, then required lifelong care.